How to solve the creative block, how to bypass the creative block that you may have as a coach or that you may even have in your own life sometimes. This will be helpful when you work with somebody to help them figure out a way for their life, and this will be helpful whenever you come into a problem that you can't really figure out how to get past. The first thing to say is that creativity is like a muscle, basically. You don't just have creativity or you don't have it, you exercise it. The more you stretch your creativity muscle, even when it doesn't feel ready, the more it is going to be easy to have the brightest ideas, even when you're not looking for them. So all of those exercises right here, all of those 5 tips are things you can really use on a day-to-day basis so that you train your brain to think in unconventional ways and fire off resources you may have never thought about prior to this. The very essence or basic component, I would say, of creativity is to combine 2 elements together. In the beginning, you have the one field of expertise, the one thing you want to try to solve, and you may have something else that has nothing to do with it. It is, when you think about it, basically what happens in a coaching session or in a therapy session, because there is the brain of the client who is confused, lost, in pain, whatever you want. Then there is your brain on the other side, who has other ideas, who has a different life experience, a different life path, a different life story. When you merge those 2 together, new ideas can come out. It is also the principle behind the mastermind, a brainstorming session with colleagues at the office. When you assemble 2 elements, 2 systems together, a new system or a new idea can merge, can exist, can be invented out of that combination. The same thing can happen only in yourself, inside your own mind, by just combining 2 things together. Okay, there is my mind, I think like this, point A. What if I was taking on the perspective of Milton Erickson's mind, or Richard Bandler's mind, or Tony Robbins' mind? Now you are combining 2 elements together just by thinking about it. The second technique is a language, a pattern that you can use with your client or that you can even answer by yourself, even if I know it may be highly uncomfortable for many of you. It is what is it that is not clearly being said? Or what is it that I am not clearly saying, that I am not clearly admitting right now? Whenever a client seems completely stuck into their own reality, into something that doesn't seem to move forward, at some point you can interrupt them by asking clearly but politely, what is it, if I may ask, what is it that you don't clearly say right now? What is it that you don't want to say right now? There must be something, because if everything was clearly being said, we would just not be having this conversation right now. So what is it that you are not clearly saying or talking about or witnessing in your mind because you want to block that picture away? What is the main thing that is not clearly being said? And you elaborate on whatever is stuck, repressed, or not really comfortable enough to be discussed. You elaborate upon that. If it is in yourself, then why does it feel uncomfortable? What makes it uncomfortable? The one thing you don't want to look at, why? Tip number 3 is to ask yourself or the client again, if this was already solved, so it's like a future pacing, if this was already solved, what would it look like? Many times we know what we want to get away from, but we don't have a crystal clear picture of where we are going. We don't have a clear understanding of where we are going, and as a consequence we may loop in circles, always going through the same road again, or whenever we approach something that could make us move forward, we actually climb back and go back to exactly where we were. So if the thing you are pursuing, trying to achieve, or that seems stuck in your life, if it was already solved, if it was already there right now, it is done, okay, everything is solved, what does it look like? How is this different from what is around you right now? How is this different from the situation you live on a day-to-day basis? Specifically, people, colors, temperature, eventually, and sounds. Who do you talk with? Who do you don't talk to anymore? What do you feel inside compared to where you are right now? All of those things. Number 4, it may be even more uncomfortable, but it is done on purpose, so keep listening. It is if I was never, or if you were never ever solving that problem. What would happen then? If you were to never succeed, if that thing you are chasing, pursuing, you want to achieve, if it was never going to move on anyway, never, what would be happening? What would be the worst pain that would happen? That question acts as a propulsion system to get the person away from the thing they are in pain about. A sad truth about the human brain is that many times we are not as motivated about the compelling things in the future as we are about getting rid of the negative things in our present moment or from the past. Maybe some people are trapped into past trauma, past wounds, and the drive to get away from that, to get out of that, is stronger than any positive future. So the person who is heavily traumatized and has their nightmares about what happened in their life, they may still be more compelled about taking drugs. There is also the addictive substance, but that aside, they could be more driven about escaping, about numbing themselves in drugs, in alcohol, in whatever, just to numb themselves. The drive to do that is stronger than the drive to be healthy and have a healthy body, because this is not as compelling as getting away from the trauma that is putting them in so much pain. So when you ask a question like that to somebody, if you were to never achieve that, what would be the worst pain that would be lying in your life? That could be a trigger for, oh, holy shit, I have to get out of that right now. It could be a good motivation point. Not with everyone. It's not like a surefire strategy. Some people will be triggered by that, some people won't. If they are not, okay, fine, just move on to something else. But if some people are just addicted even to pain, or like they are so used to have a massive thing they can't deal with anymore in their life and trying to get away from that, that when you just mention it, or you just make their mind connect the dots about how much shit their life is going to be if they don't move on, it's going to be enough. That's a sad truth about the human brain, but it's going to be enough many times to make them move forward and actually trigger the motivation they needed from the get-go to act upon the things they had to act upon. And the last one is a slight self-hypnotic process, or like a visualization process. It is called a synesthesia, that you may know about if you have been studying some NLP. It is about mixing, when you start from one sensory representation system, like the auditory system, you listen to things, to visual colors, shiny brightness, how far the picture is in your mind. Just when you move from one modality to another, you may activate new resources in your brain. And actually, when Diels made the whole work on the genius strategies, I think it was one of the main components of that, of how do geniuses unlock their creative potential. Quite often synesthesia was used. So they were mixing sounds with images and putting them together, or distancing the feelings from the image, whatever. So one thing that is pretty simple, that does not need any advanced training, that you could use right now, is you just think about the problem you have, whatever it is, and you associate one color. So if you just listen to this, you imagine what is the one problem that is getting you stuck right now in your life, and if there was, as simple as that, one simple color to associate to the representation you have of that problem, or the feelings, the negative feelings you get about this problem. And on the opposite, on the other side, you think about a solution, or like what would it look like once it is handled, once it is solved, or the easiest solution you can think about related with that problem. And same thing, you associate a color. Which color does that make you think about? If your mind could just trigger one color right now at the thought of this solution or improvement or goal achieved, which specific color would that be? Then you have those two colors and you merge them together, just like in the example in the beginning of this video. You merge them together and you notice which new color is getting out of that as a result, as a consequence? Which new color is emerging in your mind when you assemble the pain and the positive? So it is encore collapsing, if you are familiar with the NLP terms. Once you do this encore collapsing, the pain and the positive together, and you notice what your mind automatically wants, which will always be the positive or some version of the positive one, or at least some solution to ease down, to change the negative aspect, the negative thing in your life, you notice which new color pops up, and it doesn't have to obey the rules of color grading, of how do you put gradients, like it doesn't have to be logical. Just one thing will pop up in your mind, and you ask yourself simply, so you shift again from visual to auditory, ask yourself, which path or which solution is this an echo of? Which solution appeals to that color? Or what does that color triggers as a solution in my life right now? What can I think about when I think about this new color that could help me solve this problem? And with that process, you are helping your brain to trigger new things. Maybe the connection will not be made right away when you do that process in your mind, but also maybe it will just happen in the next days. The very next days you may have one idea popping up, because the more you tweak your mind around and move cables and links, and the more you change the things in your mind, the more at some point, as I said, creativity is a muscle, the more you stretch that muscle in many different directions, the more incredible ideas will pop up in your mind out of nowhere. And when you have done that process enough times with clients in therapy, then you will just always have the right intuitions in your brain as you discuss with them anyway. If you want to learn more about NLP in general, you have a document in the description called The 3 Fundamentals of Neuro-Linguistic Programming. You can find many resources down there about how to alter your own states, how to change your own level of self-confidence, how to choose a path in life eventually, and how to help clients in therapy. And then I will see you pretty soon in the next video. Thank you for listening.